I'm sorry, I could not resist. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number, wait a minute, it's coming back. Episode number 47 of FinalBossTV. I am your host, my name is Adam K, aka Bay, and today we are doing Alpha First Impressions. And to set the tone, I felt no other better video to post than Nobble's video of him twerking on the new orc female model all across Draenor. So, I hope you're ready for this, because if that video doesn't make you ready, I don't know what's going to. But first, let's go on the table real quick and see who's on the show today. Here, not twerking, is our lovely co-host of FinalBossTV. There's Anna. Hi, Anna.
Hey everybody. Now with new and improved microphone setup, I finally got my mic set up the way that it should be. Months and months after I got all of these great upgrades. You should check my Twitter for the epic photos of my super awesome shelf. My little shelf adventure.
It is pretty awesome.
Yeah, let's hope that this shelf fares a little bit better than that one that's behind me here. That one didn't last nearly as long, so hopefully this one will be okay.
I think there's enough screws in the your little shelf.
Yeah, it's definitely bolted into the wall with 6 different screws, but it's great. I have like a boom arm now. It's wonderful. So
that's awesome. And then joining us, both guests over the pond today. First up, of course, is the new to the show, Qelric, the DK. Hello, Qelric.
Hello, Bay. Hello, FinalBossTV.
Are you ready for this? Are you ready to do this today? You good?
I am definitely ready. I'm food buffed and everything.
Oh, are you?
Yep.
Coffee buffed, which is the important thing.
Coffee buffed. Yes. Coffee should give you a buff in the game. Doesn't it used to? I think something did. Very nice.
It used to be something like that.
Yeah, there were the Kappa beans.
There is a Kappa press.
Oh, that is. Oh, there he is, jumping the gun. There's Treckie as well. Hello, sir.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning. Well, for you, maybe.
Working for everyone.
Woke up like an hour and a half ago, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I actually woke up in time for CTR as always, so that's fine.
Very nice. Very good. So today we're going to get into some alpha first impressions, right, guys? We have a whole bunch of random bits and bobs to talk about. Now, I was going to have us actually have the alpha like in the background, so I could actually pull up some tooltips or, you know, answer questions live with the alpha client going. However, it is down right now until tomorrow.
Blizzard had other plans. They scheduled the downtime just for the show that we were doing the Q&A.
I know! Oh, the post went out on Friday and I was like,
Maybe they figured nobody would be playing the alpha this week with the World Cup going on. I mean, the USA game is at 6 p.m. today.
I don't know if that would have been the reason, but maybe. We'll let that go.
Well, let's introduce our guests a little bit, though, before we go into the Q&A, because I know that we've had Treckie on the show before, but Qelric, this is your first time here with us, so why don't you let our viewers, who aren't your viewers, I see a lot of your viewers in chat,
a little bit.
Let our FinalBossTV viewers know a little bit about who you are and what you do online.
Okay, well, I'm a YouTuber. I mostly cover news to do with World of Warcraft and other Blizzard games. I am 100% just Blizzard games. I also live stream on Twitch, and I do the occasional bit of writing, some journalism for other websites as well. So I try to do a bit of everything, but yeah, Blizzard all the way.
Excellent. Sounds good. And I know that we can find more from you on your YouTube channel. Where is that at?
That's youtube.com/Qelric.
Okay.
There's no Everyone has an issue with my name. There's no U in Qelric, though.
Yeah, I did mistype it a bunch myself a couple times.
A U? Where would you put the U? What?
After the
After
Q.
the Q.
Really?
Everybody does it.
Huh.
Usually it does go there.
Okay, I didn't even realize that. I guess because I met you straight up without the U issue. So, all right, fair enough.
Great,
Yep.
so we can hear more from you on your YouTube channel and also on Twitch, where you've been doing a bunch of streaming.
Absolutely. New videos every day, and I stream pretty much 6 days a week now.
Oh my goodness, excellent.
Goodness.
If only I had the time to have that streaming schedule.
Yeah, I have a bunch of time, so...
Excellent. Well, now, Treckie, tell us a little bit about where we can hear more from you. I know that most of our viewers have seen you on the show before. This is your 3rd time here with us?
I don't know who this guy is. Who is this guy?
He plays the best class in the game, so...
Ah, here it goes.
Paladin, of course. No, I mean, I live stream 5 to 6 days a week on Twitch/Treckie. And I don't know, we do a lot of raids all the time for main raid and method, and then alt raids with Midwinter and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff going on for sure. And Alpha whenever that's not down.
Excellent.
Oh, yes. You were doing you have both tunes. You have tunes on EU and US. Do you have Horde both sides as well?
No,
Horde and Alliance?
Alliance on US, Horde on EU.
Ah, okay. Gotcha. Sounds good. Yeah, we were all in the same boat when we were putting the show together. We were like, we want to play the alpha, but then no. But I mean, I'll take the alpha on Monday with the Alliance starting zones and whatnot. We'll get to that a little bit later. We have a ton of awesome screenshots that Alex and Laws gave us from Fat Boss, which they were on the alpha, and then when it went down, they didn't go down either. So he went around and took tons of awesome screenshots, which we'll get to later on in the show, of course. And you guys can see a bit of a preview of what Shadowmoon Valley looks like and the Black Temple, the way it used to be. Yeah, we'll get to that a little later. So that should be a lot of fun. But first off, I wanted to get into a little bit more into you guys' background in World of Warcraft, mostly because we're talking about the alpha and how a new expansion is coming out now. So how long have you two been playing this game? And I'll go with we'll go with Qelric first.
Yeah, I've been playing since TBC. And I think I've probably only been unsubbed like 1 month of that time. So I've been playing a long time.
Ooh.
Yeah, wow. It's always great when you go back and look at your history of sub and you're like, my gosh, that's how long I've been playing this game.
Yeah, occasionally I do the math and figure out how much I've actually spent on this game. And then I just think, no, don't look. Don't even look.
Don't look.
Yeah, well, it's nice to have such a consistent history with so many years of playing. I know I'm a little jealous of you guys who started playing in BC because I missed a lot of the golden days of raiding as a Wrath baby myself.
It's just incredible to look back and see all the changes that I've seen throughout the expansions. I wasn't around in vanilla, even though someone did buy me the game back then, but I refused to play it because I thought it looked really terrible.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heresy.
The person bought me the Burning Crusade expansion, and then I was just feeling so guilty that I was like, okay, I'll install it and try it. And that's it ever since, been playing. But it's nice to be able to look back and think how far the game has come.
Mm-hmm.
No,
especially since you get to compare all of that experience of starting in BC with the new Warlords of Draenor expansion coming out since all
yes.
that's being redone.
The nostalgia is over 9,000 right now, it really is.
A little bit. Absolutely, you're totally right. Even though even the armor sets, some of them are based off of the older armor sets now, and like the HD'd versions. So you'll be able to even like wear some of the old feels. It's gonna be nice. It's coming.
Oh yes.
And now, Treckie, tell us about when you started playing this game, because I know you've been playing at quite a high level for some time now.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's quite the same story actually. I didn't actually start playing in Classic, even though both my brothers did, and I just I guess I wanted to be different or whatever. I didn't wanna. I like refused to play the game. Although
that happens with siblings.
Yeah, and then Burning Crusade came out, and they basically just asked me if I wanted to play with them, and I just agreed to that. And then since BC, it's never been unsubscribed for more than like a day or something.
A day?
It's just,
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just because it went out, and I had to go get a card the day after or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That makes
So do your brothers still play, or are you way more hardcore than they are?
No, none of them play. Well, my older brother comes back every now and then for expansions and stuff. But
they failed you. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. They did.
So no one has World of Warcraft tenure in this. I still have it. So beta number 4 or open beta 4 or
My
whatever, way
gosh.
back in the day.
Well, I bought the game in vanilla, but then I unsubscribed until the very. I bought the game in vanilla and I played like super casually because I used it just as a way to keep in touch with my college friends over the summer. But I didn't raid. I didn't raid back then, so I call myself a Wrath baby because Wrath is when I started raiding. So I consider, like, in terms of the show, that is when my WoW experience starts. But I mean, like, I played and I remember a lot of that vanilla stuff, like back when you couldn't get a mount until level 40, and back when like rogues had to make thistle tea and you had to like farm consumables and all that stuff. And when Ashen Vale was like the bane of my existence way before they redid the map. So I do remember some of that vanilla experience. Before, I remember being really angry when they added blood elves to the game. That was actually one of the reasons why I unsubscribed. Because I was like, Horde shouldn't get a pretty race. This is such BS. All the kiddies are going to come play Horde now because they have an elf race. Wow. And I like unsubscribed from WoW. So that was a long time ago.
Terrible.
Ali obviously won that one when they got Draenor, though.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's when I went. That's when I went shaman. I was a vanilla druid for 2 years, and I remember playing old school Boomkin in Nax 40, walking up to Resuvius after I had no mana, whacking him with my mace to get mana back. Oh, how the game has changed.
Yeah, when I came back to the game, it was Wrath, but it was early Wrath, and I had missed all of this BC stuff. So I rolled a Draenor because I hadn't played that race before, and I got jewel crafting because it was it was new to me. It was the new profession to me. So those things, I'm not jewel crafting anymore, and my paladin is no longer a Draenor, but you know.
No. Well, soon you can pick whatever professions you want because of whatever reason, because they're losing all the combat benefits.
Yeah. It's too bad I dropped jewel crafting for engineering since jewel crafting was terrible this expansion. I regret doing that now.
I've been BSJC now for like 3 expansions. I haven't gone back. Whatever. I'm probably just lazy, I guess. So you guys both main certain characters. What do you guys both play now, and has it always been your main? I know Treckie said he plays the best class in the game, but have you always played Paladin, Treckie?
No, I actually started out playing a mage, and that was my first levels was 70. Draenor male mage, of course.
Oh. Yes, so terrible cast animations. What is
now,
wrong with you?
Did you have chinticles?
And well, 2, but very discreet. But yeah.
See, there you go.
Very discreet. Okay. Maybe that's acceptable.
Nice choice of words.
Yeah.
Good.
So,
nice. I like it.
But that was my first character. I played that one for like a little bit over a year until like Suleiman came around, and I started using my. I had my paladin at that point, and we were just doing these Suleiman runs all the time for beer runs, and our like guild tanks just didn't want to join the raids, so I just ended up doing like 10 runs of my alt, and I was like, well, fuck it, I'll just reroll this one, and then I joined another guild. So since then, it's been like a few weeks before Sunwell. That's when I rerolled my paladin, actually.
Oh. Okay, so a long time though. Still, gosh, that's still almost 3 full expansions now. So
yeah, I've been in Method for since last Sunday was my 4-year anniversary since joining Method.
Ooh, well, fancy, nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And Qelric, what about you? Are you always been a DK since they were putting the game in Wrath? I guess until that's your first character. Ah.
Well, in TBC, I was a human female warrior that would tank as the main spec. But as soon as Wrath came out, the first thing I did was I made a Death Knight. While everyone in my guild was leveling their characters to max level, I just went to level 55, leveled a Death Knight, and never ever looked back again. So every single expansion, that's been my main. Just love it.
Do you have other characters you play, or?
Right before Mists, I played all the other classes. I had max level ults of all the other classes, apart from Rogue. And I used to raid on all of them. We would do alt raids and pug raids and things like that. But the DK's always been my main. And then in Mr. Pandaria, I didn't actually have as much time to play. So I literally just focused on the one class. I've just recently started trying to level my Paladin, and I leveled my Shaman as well. But DK.
Now, the one question I always want to know about like players that have like a really strong love for like one class, and I always use a different example. I have a Warlock in my guild that actually has like 4 different Warlocks.
Yeah, we all have somebody like that in our guild.
Do you have 3 different DKs, all of one main spec only, or no, just one DK?
I have been known to level Death Knights on other realms.
Oh.
I love leveling through the starting zone. And,
It is awesome. It is awesome.
And Outland is pretty cool. Usually, once I get to Northrend, I start losing a bit of motivation, and then I just go back to my main again because inevitably there's stuff I need to be doing there too. So,
right.
Yeah, I have been known to make a few DKs.
Have been known. I actually thought that the other day because I was looking at starter area stuff and the new sets and whatnot, and I was like, the Panda one was okay, but I don't think any starter zone has been as good as the DK one. It just has too much.
Oh, that was a great experience. It's actually one of my most memorable experiences playing WoW. If I ever quit this game and I look back, and I would name like epic raid bosses and such as being great memories, but the first time I played through the DK starter zone, it's like the only time that I think Blizzard has really nailed it with regard to immersion and story. It's just
definitely. So well designed, and all the different NPCs that you come across, and just doing quests for the Lich King, epic.
Yeah, it's pretty
I almost didn't want to turn on him.
Yeah.
It's a successful sign right there.
Yeah, he's my favorite character of this game, so...
Well, let's go into a little bit of your testing experience. How much testing have you done for previous alphas and betas? Are you a really big PTR person and always on the PTR? Let's talk to you first, Treckie.
I've been in the end stages of most betas due to the fact that we really kind of need to test raid bosses and stuff.
Right.
So at least for Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria for sure. Otherwise, on PTRs, like the mini patches, you obviously test all the raid combat. You need to test like how the raids trinkets are working and like tier bonuses and how they interact with each other, and like find the bugs and like how they are exploitable, so that they can fix them in time. But otherwise than that, there's not a whole lot to do like that I concern myself about. Like a lot of the questing and exploring, I kind of usually wait for that until the actual game is released. Not because I feel like it's too much spoilers and stuff, but it's just like it doesn't gain me much doing the alpha, in my opinion.
I see. So you're mostly like a itemization and tier bonuses and sort of PvE content type of tester.
Yeah, mechanics. Yeah.
And now, how about you, Qelric? Have you been doing a lot of testing in previous alphas and betas?
I actually never got invited to beta test anything apart from Mr. Pandaria, just because I like subscribed for a year or something, and even then it took a few waves before I got in. So I always tried to do the PTR stuff though. I did get the best thing I did was raid testing Siege of Orgrimmar on the PTR. But previous to that, as I said, I didn't get invited to any. I would have loved to have done it though. Yeah.
Well, then it sounds like you'll be showing Blizzard all the testing that you can do with this cycle of alpha testing, since you got in at the very beginning here.
Now, unless you help test and figure out the footprint error, I don't know. I think I got that one up on you right now, because I took like.
I'm not sure. I mean, she found all those bugs in the conga dancing, so that is equally critical. Yeah, I saw when you had the video of like the guys there were guys who get stuck sometimes underneath, and one of your NPCs was missing for a while.
I took them into the pools behind the garrison. I was trying to see if I could drown them. And they didn't.
This isn't The Sims, Qelric.
True DK right there. Let's see if we can drown our
let's see how loyal these people really are. Will they follow me into the water? And some of them got stuck, but they didn't die. So, yeah.
How much alpha testing have you done right now on the alpha, though, Treckie? You've done like every tank class, right? Yeah,
I've tried all the tank classes and a little bit of my rogue and warlock, but it's very basic. Mainly it's been testing about how the new, like with the scaling system, with the healing output, throughput from the healers, work with the different tanks. That's mainly what I've been trying, getting the feel for the different tanks and how they really like interact with each other with different spells and abilities, how they've been changed.
Yeah. Have you been working with a specific healer or just dealing with pug healers?
No, I actually prefer using pug healers because you never really know what you're going to expect. Because running with a really good healer is actually kind of boring, because then that way you don't really know if you're like doing it properly or not. So it's better running with someone who might not have too much of a clue, to be honest, because then that means you need to be more on more on the ball of things and just be able to adapt better. And I like that.
Very interesting.
It really tests the active mitigation of the active tanks now, if you're actually not just 100% health all the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, indeed.
it's true. Yeah, I did 8 nights of alpha so far. They're all on the Final Boss TV front page. If you've missed it, we went through every class and spec so far. Even though like a whole bunch of stuff has changed, it was obviously just like a first pass to see what is like sweepingly different. And the one thing I noticed about that, which is funny you bring up the whole tank thing, is that every tank only has like a couple of damage abilities now, but then they have tons of active mitigation. It's like they finally figured out, or at least are trying to figure out now, how to give that active playstyle, and that the mitigation is more important than your damage. Guardian Druids and Blood DKs being the number one, I think, of this, because they were really weak right now, and they only had like no buttons to actively mitigate. You know, because Bone Shield is pretty passive, and Death Strike is just sort of what you do. But now
DKs have a huge amount of cooldowns to use.
Well, Guardian Druids and I think DKs have like 5 to 7 between the two of them, depending on what you take talent-wise. And that's all to take less damage. But Guardian Druid also only has 4 buttons to hit for DPS. 3, sort of. So, yeah. It's really weird how that is like the way that they're pushing tanks to it. Do you think it's a good way to do that, Treckie? Do you like that step?
I'm a little bit mixed feelings about it, honestly. I really do like the fact that you're going away from like a very complicated DPS rotation or whatever, and especially the vending change mainly. Just being able to do like a constant amount of DPS. I think that's a good way to do a tank class, and then have it very centered around active mitigation, resource generation, and have that be the central part about tanking. Because like, doing your DPS should be relatively easy to do. It's about surviving as a tank, which is where it's at as a tank.
Yeah.
But I think some people think it's boring, and some people definitely go for the DPS-oriented way with the current vending system. So I hope that's going away with vending.
Yeah, those people are just going to have to adjust.
They're just going to reroll it, go with DPS again, I think.
Yeah, they'll reroll. They'll just leave the tanking class.
Well, I mean, sometimes that's what happens. You know, some people figure out that what they've liked best about how they've been playing has been the DPS side. I mean, I know that that's what happened to me. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that people who enjoy a specific piece of tanking might find that they like DPS a little bit better. So.
The changes that they're making can change like quite drastically the gameplay of that class as well. So I can understand why people might get upset. I would personally prefer it if all the tanks had their own different way of surviving. I preferred the old style prot warrior that had to constantly keep shield block up and stuff like that. But I know that I think Blizzard realized that the DK way of tanking, kind of gaining survivability through dealing damage with the Death Strike, is quite popular and has worked out really well. And now they're trying to give it to almost all the other tanks. I'm not really a fan of that though. Makes them all a bit similar.
Well, we talked about a little bit of how Blood DK, at least in the first pass currently right now, is that they are cruise control for self-sustainability, I think, versus all the other tanks right now.
Yes, I actually, thanks to a bug, I did manage to solo the first dungeon in Frostfire Ridge. Like,
you soloed it?
Within the first, I think it was within the first 2 or 3 days that the alpha went live.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
DKs actually didn't have much problem soloing that one. And with the 90 talents, I think most, if not all, tanks could actually technically solo that instance. It just took a really, really long amount of time. Like, if you look at if you take down logs of the fights, you will see that tanks are doing more than twice the healing on themselves than the healers are doing on the tanks for every single class, tank class. So basically, if you just play smart with your cooldowns, you can technically solo as any tank, I'm pretty sure.
I don't think it's intended that the absorptions are that high.
I think no. I don't, especially not for DKs. I think the base level of heals and shields are a little bit too high for some classes, and we'll see when bosses actually start doing real amounts of damage instead of like a normal mode dungeon hitting you and you getting basically no result.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
UBRS was completely the opposite end of the scale. I could solo up until and including the first boss, and then after that, I just got my face bashed in horribly.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I don't think UBRS was supposed to be open though. Wasn't that the one that you snuck into the portal?
It was.
That was the one that went live, and I don't think that they, intended for it to be live, but
Where
yeah.
the portal was just open and you guys were able to walk in, but it wasn't one of the ones you could just queue for.
Yeah.
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 They hotfixed some quest giver or something, and that suddenly opened opened UBRS or something. I don't know.
Well, we'll see
crazy.
when they do some tuning passes and when they open some more of these dungeons for real testing, how that feels.
I can't wait for that, yeah.
We
It's my
definitely-
favorite part of testing, doing the group content.
Yeah, I was about to say, what's your favorite part of doing the testing?
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely tell us a little bit about what you enjoy testing most.
Well, what I've been doing is I've leveled 3 Death Knights,
Right,
one
right.
for each spec,
Okay.
just to see how they compare to live. And yeah, doing the dungeons that's what I do in game. I do PvE, I do dungeons and raids and stuff like that. So I really wanted to see what the class kind of performs like in a group setting. And as it turned out, I didn't need a group, but looking forward to trying out the max level stuff and some of the heroics as well. But yeah, I've just been questing, trying all the different talents in multiple orders for each spec. And I'm pretty impressed so far, to be honest. It's only the Blood DK that seems to have... It feels a lot different to the live version compared to Unholy and Frost.
Okay, so less changes for Unholy and Frost, more changes for Blood so far?
Definitely,
Absolutely, yeah.
definitely.
Some questionable changes for Blood as well.
Yeah, I don't agree with a lot of them. And they're taking some getting used to, but I'm hoping that Blizzard are going to kind of rethink some of those changes.
I don't even play a Death Knight anymore. I only play one in Wrath, but Blood DK having your main ability you basically spam as Pestilence, which is like a dot refresh and does some damage, feels kind of awkward.
Yeah, it's constant AoE. It's I don't like sometimes in dungeons there's going to be a group nearby that's CC'd and you don't want to AoE. It's like, what do I do in this situation? Because Pestilence is adding stacks to my Death Strike, so I'm kind of gimping myself if I don't use that ability.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, then it sounds like in general you've been doing a lot of questing and a lot of very specific DK testing. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, 100% accurate.
Okay. And now,
Yeah.
Treckie, what is the testing that you've been mostly focusing on? I know you mentioned it a bit before, but just for our viewers.
Yeah, it's pretty much just dungeons, really. I don't really care that much about the questing and all that kind of stuff. I just I went to the Ogre Cave to get like 92 in 6 minutes or whatever, and then I went to
So you went to the Ogre
queue in the
Cave.
dungeon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
So and then queue for the dungeon because that's where you see the how the different classes work. So I don't know how many. I easily done them like 10, 15 times on each tank.
Okay, so you've just been queuing the dungeons on all of your different tank classes.
Yeah.
All the tanks.
Excellent.
And which is your favorite?
I really like Paladin with 5 Avenged Shield target. That's like
Oh, I saw that.
feels-
That feels so
it
good.
feels so much more powerful having it hit 5 targets. So it's just so much fun to play.
Does it diminish in
Yeah.
damage like Chain Lightning or no?
No. It just hits for the same amount of damage.
It's just
Wow.
5 targets.
beast.
I
Okay.
saw that.
Yeah.
That was the one paladin change where I was
Yeah.
like, you know, when you look at a change and you're like, that is going to be so awesome. Yeah.
So when I ding 91, it scrolls through all those random ones, and I got Avenged Shield. I was like so happy. And then when I leveled my 3rd Paladin, I think, and all of them got Avenged Shield, and at level 91, I think it's static for testing purposes.
Okay.
But it's so nice. It's 5 targets.
That sounds really great.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And I have kind of a general question for you guys, because I'm one of those people who feels like I love testing too. I've extensively tested in previous on previous PTRs, and my guild does raid testing and such. But I do feel like sometimes playing these things spoils a bit of the live game for me. Is that a feeling that y'all have ever had in the testing that you've been doing? Are you concerned that it'll spoil your enjoyment when Warlords launches, or are you avoiding certain things so you can experience them at launch?
I'm the sort of person that before Christmas will shake and feel presents. I don't care about being surprised or anything. I just want to know what's in there. So
Okay.
I have no issue seeing everything before it launches. Yeah, no problem with that for me. Although some of my friends, they didn't want to be spoiled, and they're like, I can't watch your videos because I don't want to see anything. I don't want to be spoiled. This is the internet. I don't see how you're going to avoid it, to be honest.
I see. Okay. Well, that's a very realistic way of looking at things. And how about you, Treckie?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. Like, I don't do much exploring or questing, and it's not because I don't want to have it spoiled to me or whatever. It's mainly because if I do them on the alpha, I need to do them on live anyway again. So I might as well have that experience when I do it on live. I don't really feel I'd get spoiled or anything, but otherwise it's just dungeons, just running them and just getting the feel of them, because every time you do a boss, you see another part of that fight, which prepares you better for when it actually goes live. So now it's only a 5-man right now, but that goes for raiding especially.
Okay, I see.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm pretty okay with that. I mean, I've seen every single class and spec so far in the alpha, and what I'm doing, of course, when they change more things or whatever, I'll pinpoint and look around, because it's helping me for class episodes for the Draenor season of Final Boss. Because right now, on this first whole pass, we've done every single class and spec so far in Mists of Pandaria, I don't know every class. I don't know all their ins and outs. I never really felt how they played. But now since I've done, oh gosh, probably close to 40 or more hours of testing on all the classes and specs over the 8 different nights I did, that helps me understand now what classes they're looking at in Warlords now. I can ask them specifically about, you know, like Subtlety Rogue scared the hell out of me. So we'll have to see how that changes. We'll see how the tank classes changes. We'll see how the casters change, how hunters feel when they just have cruise control for DPS all the time and they can move and shoot. So I feel a lot better acquainted with all the different classes, so it's a lot of fun to me, I think.
Yeah, I guess it's not really like storyline and things like that, because I totally don't mind testing extensively the PvE content. Like I know that some my guildmates all test, but some of them kind of grumble about it because they're like, man, I wish that we didn't have to do this, and it would be nice to experience these raids on live. And that's not really me. I don't find that the mechanics become less cool. I love the feeling of knowing how to deal with the mechanics before I go in week 1. Like, that is great. I would test, even if my guild didn't test, I would go test so that I would be familiar with stuff. But the questing, I guess I have a limited amount of patience for questing, and I don't want to work my way through it on alpha. So
Yeah.
On the subject of testing rage, do you find that it's more enjoyable because you literally have to read the dungeon journal and try and figure out tactics for yourself, instead of when it's on live and people have already done it? The temptation is always to look it up and see what you're supposed to do to beat the encounter.
Well, I mean, for someone like Treckie, that's a different experience because his guild is doing things for the very first time, and they're building all of those strats that the rest of us go and look at. By the time we do things, there are generally a couple of strats out. There isn't always like a number one way of doing things, and so we are usually working our way through things. But it is a little bit more exciting to do it on live when we don't know how things are supposed to work. I honestly prefer it when we're not doing as much reading, and our main tank is just like, let's pull this, see what happens. Yeah. It's just
pull and pray.
Yeah.
You don't get that experience on live.
Yeah, I absolutely love the first few pulls you do on a boss. Like, even if you've seen the dungeon journal, it doesn't really tell you too much. Like, it gives you a few abilities and all that kind of stuff. But you just pull the very first time, and everything just scatters, and everyone runs around like hellish chickens. And it's just so funny seeing everyone trying to adapt and seeing what happens and what does this do, what does this ability say it does, and then what does it actually do.
Yeah.
Which are definitely never ever the same on like alpha testing and stuff like that. So.
No, they are never.
It's always so funny when someone quotes a tooltip and says like, "This is how it's done," and like, yeah, okay, well this doesn't work that way. That might be their intention, but that just
you can't trust the tooltips.
No, not at all. Sometimes you can't trust them on live, but definitely not on alpha.
Nope.
See, that's the experience that like Method and the top guilds like that, they have that on every boss, but for guilds that are sort of lower on the progression scale, and we're I guess for the viewers who haven't seen before, my guild is like in the US 30s. That experience is something that we really only get when we test, and it's my favorite part of testing, and I just love it. I think it's great.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to move along real quick, mostly because I have to step away for just a moment. So let's pop over here to this this took me so long to get right. We're going to talk about a couple of alpha testing stuff, and because I can't actually bounce into the game on the alpha server, we're going to bounce into some freaking footage. Again, this is from Nobble the Noble. He provided some flying over Frostfire Ridge real quick here. And, wait, here it comes. Wait, there it is. And you can take it away with some controversial topics real quick, Anna.
Oh, great. You're leaving this one to me. Excellent.
Yeah. I'll be back in a second. I got to step away for a moment.
Okay, well, let's see. Let's talk about flying, because there is no way that we're going to get through this stream without talking about flying a little bit. I know that this has been a very controversial topic in the community. There are a lot of people who are really upset that Blizzard has removed flying, is just not putting flying in for Warlords. And I'd like to hear a little bit from you guys about what your experience has been like. Not necessarily just your general opinion on flying, because everyone has their opinion, but more, how do you feel the expansion is playing out without access to flying? How has it affected the way that you've been playing in the game?
For me, well, sorry, Treckie.
No, you can take it. Don't worry.
Okay. For me, I mean, previously I didn't have an issue with it, to be honest. But having actually quested through the zones, admittedly, SMV was not up for very long. But certainly with Frostfire Ridge, I felt that zone was so well designed, with lots of little hidden treasures dotted around, and just exploring and wandering into areas of the zone that pops up bonus objectives and just hidden treasures. I don't honestly think people are going to miss flying. It's the theme of it, the environment, the way it's designed. People are not going to miss flying, in my opinion.
Well, that's good to hear. That's really good. Has your experience been consistent with that, Treckie?
I think the leveling experience is probably pretty sure definitely better without flying. And we kind of saw that in Mr. Pandaria and Cataclysm as well, I think. But that you couldn't fly right away as you started leveling, and later on you could start flying. And I really think that's a good way to do leveling content without flying. I just don't know how are we gonna feel like half a year after Warlords is released. Are we still gonna be very tired about having to run? Are we gonna enjoy the new flight pass? Or is there any other quick travel system between like zones and like vast areas at least?
Yeah.
Or we will need them at all?
That's a really good point, because the experience of flying when you're leveling is very different from the experience of being at the end game and just needing to get from place to place.
Yeah.
So
I think if you're seeing it for the first time, then that's fine. But like once you hit max level and you start thinking, I'm going to level an alt, if that first content patch is hit, you're probably going to want to be able to fly because you have seen it already and you've enjoyed it to its fullest already.
Yeah.
So I do think that they should put flying in eventually and enable us to purchase it for our alts like they've done in certain other expansions.
Yeah, what I think might happen is that we'll get 6.1 and part of the filler content, because we don't get a raid with 6.1, right? We'll get something else. We'll get like a new hub or some whatever.
More scenarios.
Yeah, scenarios and dungeons. That's fine.
No.
What they'll do, they might unlock something else in the Draenor world, and we'll need flying to get there, and it'll be a quest or some series or a scenario again to unlock flying in Draenor, right? Something to do, just to interact us with the world. So, but 6.1 might not be 4 or 5 months after launch, maybe? Just throwing a number out there. So we're not going to have flying for quite a while.
So you think that they're going to add flying later?
Oh, yeah. If not by 6.1, then by 6.2 we'll get flying eventually. But I think there'll be a reason we get flying, not just to give us flying.
I don't
I'm not
think
too sure.
so.
No.
Yeah, I'm skeptical, just like Treckie.
I mean, they said that they were gonna release it 6. I saw someone in chat as well that they said that flying will be introduced 6.1, but that was very very early, and now they're saying that it might never introduce it at all. And I think that if you're gonna build this world around not flying, just keep it to not flying. If people are bored about having to run fast distance or whatever, do like quick portals between like across the whole area or whatever, so you can at least get slightly closer with like an instant click or whatever. Kind of like you had in Cataclysm, you had these portals to, even with flying in the world, you still had these portals to like Bashir, Twilight Highlands, and all that kind of stuff, and then start running from there or take the flight path from there. I think that's a very good way of building the world without having to have flying in it, and I don't mind. I think as long as it's done properly,
Yeah, if they never give us flying, I'm not going to complain about it. I just think if they gave us flying in Draenor, there would be a purpose. Kind of like the Elemental Plateau in Outlands right now. Like, there was a purpose to have flying in those areas. There's also islands and things you can go explore that need flying. Not just to ignore mobs and to drop in and off of nodes and herb mines and out of daily hubs, right? They'll give us a reason to need to use it to go somewhere. So it'll have a purpose, but...
I mean, I'm skeptical. I don't think that we're going to get it, but I think that the people's reaction to that is not something that we can really predict based on like imagining the game right now without...
Oh yeah, no way.
It's like what Treckie said. It just has to be designed well so that you feel as though it's convenient to get from place to place in a different manner.
We need no flight points that go around to go right back to where you just were. We need none of that loop.
And easy access to dungeons as well. I mean, I know some of the dungeons have been less convenient to get to, and some dungeons have been more convenient to get to. And it's when the dungeon is incredibly inconvenient to get to, then that's one of the things that starts to annoy people. So hopefully that becomes something that we can get to on a regular basis.
Yep. I mean, we still have to actually find all the new dungeons, right, in Draenor? That's still a thing. Right now on the alpha, they're just giving it to us. But I'd imagine, are they still letting us having to find them? Is that why you brought that up in the first place? Or are they just going to pop into our queue when we actually hit the level for it? Do we know?
I'm pretty sure you have to find them.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, but I'm talking about, like, getting to a raid zone.
Sure. No, absolutely. That's fair. I mean, the continent is pretty large, but I think the hubs on both sides of the islands, and then, of course, if the flight paths aren't, again, loop-de-loops, then we should be good to go. Yeah,
I really did like the Cataclysm design where you had the portals. I actually forgot about that until Treckie mentioned
That's true.
Where you had the portals that went to all the different zones. That was really nice.
Well, those zones were just all over the place, weren't they? You really needed that.
All them as well, yeah.
Yeah, but even so, just like, I think even if they had been all very close together, just that way of moving around, you had to go through the zone. Like you did feel as though you were in Twilight Highlands or in Oldham, but the feeling of being able to get from place to place, it was a good balance of convenience and also experiencing the world.
Yeah,
and that was with a world with flying as well. So I think if they're gonna have flying not be a thing in the beginning, they might as well keep it not be a thing throughout the whole expansion in Draenor.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. I mean, it depends on how I want to design the game. So, yep.
Yeah, I guess we'll all see, and the player base will definitely be very loud about what their experience is, because flying has been a very controversial topic so far. So I just encourage everyone to keep an open mind and don't think about how you feel about flying now, but think about the alpha content as you do it, or at launch when you're in Draenor. Think about how it feels when you're in that world.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So the next point, I can't see the notes right now because it'll cloud over this video, I do believe is the Game Squish, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, stat pruning and ability. Don't worry, Bae, I got this one covered.
Yeah, do it.
Stat pruning and ability squish. Now we did go into this a little bit before, but I'd like to hear some detail from y'all about how the classes you've been playing are feeling. Yeah. And I know that we've talked a little bit about blood decays, but let's talk in general about any classes that you feel have been over-pruned. Like maybe too many abilities have been taken away. And I know that decays are one of the classes that we've discussed with regard to this.
I wouldn't say they've been over-pruned. They just removed the wrong abilities.
Okay.
In my mind. I mean, I can't give any opinion on the other classes, but for Death Knights, I just feel like, especially for blood, they kind of took away a couple of abilities that maybe they should have taken away to other in their place. And at the same time as the ability pruning, because, they're saying there's ability bloat, but then they're adding other mechanics to other abilities that's just unnecessary complication in my mind. But I don't know what the other sort of classes are going to be like. The ghoul that the blood decays can currently summon just to kind of help out for a minute. We don't get to do that anymore, which is really sad.
Yep, only Unholy. Yep.
Only Unholy, yeah. We did manage to scream loud enough and get Army of the Dead back.
Right.
Yeah, I was definitely behind that. I don't play my DK very much, but I could definitely sympathize with that. This is a very iconic ability for us, and we should all have.
Just summoning undead, a single minion for a little while, or 5 minions for a while, or having a permanent pet, having a gargoyle. It's all epic. It just gives flavor to the class, and to be taking abilities like that away, I feel is a big no-no. In my opinion, they should take away abilities that just add unnecessary complication and just, it makes for an annoying rotation, basically.
I see.
Yeah, Army of the Dead now, though, is super epic. It feels awesome to summon them while you're moving. That's pretty cool. It is pretty neat, but
oh yeah, I like that very much.
It's still a defensive cooldown as well for blood tanks. It still gives you your mitigation amount flat based on your parry and dodge. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And that's part of the point of all this alpha testing, is so that the devs can see how these changes that they're putting in feel to a much wider variety of people. So I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily that, as you put it, DK screamed loud enough to get it back. That's how I felt about Paladins and Wings. But I also thought that was a worthy comment. That's the kind of feedback that they're looking for. And as long as you make it in a constructive manner, like, this ability means a lot to me, take something else away instead. That's the kind of feedback they're looking for.
Give a reasoned and logical opinion, and don't be rude about it, but definitely speak up. Don't ever think that they're not listening, because they are. I mean, if 1 out of 1,000 people talk, then they're probably not going to make a change. But if the majority talks about it, then they might do that. So, and we've been seeing that happening recently as well with some other changes.
Yep. They're not necessarily always going to do what the players want, but they're definitely going to listen to us and weigh what we're saying against what they want to do with our classes.
Yeah. Because they want us to have fun, but they also want it to be balanced. So they have to find a balance between those two as well.
So now let's hear a little bit from you, Treckie. Do you feel like, since you've played a much wider variety of classes, specifically with tanks, have you feel like any of them have been over-pruned, too many abilities taken away?
Not really. I mean, I think some classes lost an ability here, like Warriors lost Cleave, which was kind of nice. Druids got a change of their rotation, but their rotation already is really, really small, so now they basically changed it even more, so there's basically 2 buttons to press, which is kind of weird right now.
A little bit.
But I don't know how...
Do you think that's intended, or do you think they're going to give some more stuff back?
I don't know, that way they would have to, they can't really give something back really either, because that we had Swipe, which would kind of be in a single target rotation, I guess. But they just changed Lacerate to be not a cooldown, so you just spam that one when Mangle is not ready and keep Thrash up.
I see.
And that's it, that's all you do. So the other tanks were much better. We discussed DKs already, but Paladins and Warriors are pretty unchanged. Monks are actually really unchanged as well. So the main thing they really took away was our ability to do off-roll stuff. So our raid healing as tanks, for example, some of the tanks had really good raid healing. That's pretty much gone. Many DPS classes lost healing abilities, raid healing or raid cooldowns abilities and stuff like that. Just because I guess they felt it was too powerful, and DPSers are supposed to DPS. And I think that's what most people are up in arms about, to be honest, because they lost their raid cooldowns. They feel like they can't do much anymore if things start going wrong,
Yeah, I see. I mean, I guess that's their goal, is to reduce the ridiculous number of keybinds that a lot of us have bound, when sometimes 1 or 2 of those entire bars are only used in very small specific situations, and sometimes by a very small percentage of players ever. But the people who did appreciate having those abilities could be very unhappy they are gone. I know there are a couple things that I'm losing that I'm not necessarily that happy about. But,
well, hey, I lost Earth Shock, all right? That, it's a little simple thing here, but I'm I've had that ever since forever. So it feels weird, but we'll see if it's we'll see how it works. I mean, there are still more pruning passes going on. I know that one of the devs just tweeted the other day that there are still a couple of classes that really haven't been looked at heavily compared to the other ones, so we're still getting there. So we're still getting there.
So I guess on the other side of the coin, what do you feel like any of the classes you've been testing have been under-pruned? Do you think some of them, you've mentioned a whole lot of classes that just haven't had a whole lot of changes. Would you have expected more changes to some of these classes? Do you think there are more useless abilities that you wish were not there?
Well, we still have useless Holy Wrath as pro paladins. They could just remove that stuff.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So there's a few abilities that still makes no sense that they removed these abilities but kept these, and be that's kind of weird and doesn't really make much sense. But otherwise, I think it's pretty good. We lost a lot of cooldowns, DPS output cooldowns, and I feel like that's a bit of a loss as a tank. But I think that might be just due to the way you're used to things right now. That you used to be able to, okay, right now I have a lot of vengeance. Right now I can push more DPS. But that's going to be more static later on. So it's okay, well, there's a heavy DPS phase. I'll bet stick to my normal rotation I do anyway. So.
I see.
Yeah. I didn't feel, there were some classes I think that didn't really change very much at all, really. I know that mages had a lot of talent and like spell tweaks and reworks, and obviously talent is a big thing for them, but rotational wise, it was all almost the same when I did my alpha testing. Everyone in chat was basically like, yeah, it's the same thing on live right now, more or less. I guess they've got some cleaning up they've done. Arcane Mage is still literally 3 buttons, so that hasn't changed. So,
well, and I think that also we can expect to see more pruning passes. Like, I'm not sure how far this is. Definitely, I mean, it's worth talking about because this is, you know, their first and second pass on the pruning. But I think hopefully we can anticipate seeing some more changes, things coming back, things being removed, so that they can come to some kind of a happy medium.
They're definitely not there just yet, so we'll get there. We'll get there.
Keep playing, keep giving feedback.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. That's the number one thing I think that a lot of people are like, "Ooh, I really want to be in the alpha. I really want to be in the alpha." And then they go in and they play the alpha, and that's all they do is they play, and maybe they tell their friends how it is. The important thing is that you also give feedback about how all of the things that you're doing are going. You have to go post on the forums. Just definitely post on the alpha forums. For any of our viewers who are in the alpha, if you haven't posted on the alpha forums yet, you are squandering your testing. So you need to be doing this. Just as an FYI to everyone.
Plus, you can submit feedback in-game as well.
Yeah. Like, people actually were, like, blown away that I was submitting bug reports in-game while I was streaming the alpha testing. They're like, did he just do that? What did he... A ticket? I mean, like, it's super easy. I mean, it was just things that like, weren't adding up or weren't working or weren't properly or even, like, tooltip problems that were, like, not correct. Just so they know. Just in case, I mean, there's a lot of little knobs to turn. Like thousands of them. So help them out. Help them out. Well, I'm going to take a quick little minute here before we get into more of the Q&A part of the show and tell you all about some awesome communities and things behind the scenes and a couple of updates real quick as well here. First up, of course, if you have not bookmarked Sentry Totem yet, you should go ahead and do that. They have an awesome staff of experts that do character audits. They also have a little bit of PvP on the side there, but mostly PvE oriented. Character audits, figuring out where you can improve upon in your class, and of course that'll be a lot of help when we get into Warlords of Draenor itself. They also do lots of awesome articles, and they have some great partnered streams and folks there. So go check out SentryTotem.com for all of their awesome stuff right there. Tickle Totem put that together, who now also is in charge of Totem Spot. So she's a busy little lady. But you guys can check them out, and of course keep them bookmarked if you have any questions and things considering when Warlords of Draenor comes around. Also, we've got here, if you want some completely funny and goofy, but also good information, of course, you can go check out our friends over at FinalBossTV over there on the YouTubes. They are doing a lot of awesome alpha testing stuff right now. They've already done the first dungeon. They're doing some Horde Garrison stuff. They've got updates and new features. They've got the new Black Fathom Deeps and the Razorfin Downs updates. They've also got Razorfin Crawl updated stuff. And I'm sure Alex and Laws are busy making more videos as we speak. So go check them out. Again, FinalBossTV. The British brothers themselves are awesome. Friends of ours over here at the show. Of course, they'll be back around for something else coming out on July 20th. Literally a month from now. WoW Trivial Pursuit. Rounds 3 and 4 are going to be coming back. All the same guests. Let me move this real quick for Nobble. Boop. Everyone's the same teams. It'll be myself and Brutal versus Alex and Laws versus Elvine and Anna versus Nobble and Silver Latomi. We're going to do 2 more rounds of WoW Trivial Pursuit, so mark your calendars for that. Again, it's July 20th. We'll have some giveaways and awesome silly questions and whatnot. That should be a lot of fun, you guys. If you did see the first 2 episodes, they're again on our YouTube, rounds 1 and 2. If you missed them, you can go check them out. And our YouTube is right over here at Final Boss WoW, actually. All of our past episodes are all archived there, all of them. There's so many now, as well as our fun episodes like the Alpha Boss series that I'm making right now that are fun little clips from the Alpha streams. Of course, the BlizzCon 2013 live raid cut down video of Method versus Midwinter. Super fun. We also have an interview with Duck Sauce. We have an interview with Ian Hazakostas. We have our interview with Celestalon and Zarum for patch 6.0. And every class in the game. And they go on and on and on. So check out our YouTube if you have missed a past episode or looking for one to watch. And then some updates. So recently, we had this awesome giveaway here and donations, so you can donate to our website and you get you wristbands and stuff like that right now. And we all have these crew t-shirts, which you've seen Anna wearing in the show. About 2 weeks ago now, I finally got all of the information and stuff from all of the people that donated to get t-shirts. Now, there was an issue. It took about 4 or 5 days to get them all printed. I went to get them picked up, and they were all kind of bad. So I actually found out that the printing press and stuff like that the people were using was needed some maintenance. So they've reprinted them. I now get to go pick up the shirts on Monday, and I will be mailing them out with wristbands to the donators as soon as possible. I'm so sorry for the huge delay, but stuff always happens, and you can never be super prepared. So it's been taking a long time to get these out to you guys. And sincere thank you for your patience, and those that did donate, of course, that did help us out a lot. And that continue to support us and subscribe or donate as well. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. But the t-shirts are coming, and soon we'll also have our apparel store set up with Design by Humans, where you can actually just buy your own Final Boss stuff. Wristbands are still available through me personally. If you do donate to the website itself, I'll be handling those one-on-one. The t-shirts are coming, but it's been a task, and I've been super annoyed about it, so we'll be fixing that in the future, and thank you all again for your patience. But enough about me and babbling on. Let's get into some more alpha talk.
Yeah, let's do that.
So we had a couple of questions that come in, or a lot of questions rather, that did come in from you guys. And I'm going to bounce this back over here to this B-roll real quick, and then I'll transition over to see the awesome screenshots from the alpha stream. And you can probably take it away, Anna, if you want to take the first...
The first question, the Q&A?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, this one comes in from Resnick on Darkspear, and he says, "Hey there, I know Qelric plays Death Knight as a main, so I was wondering if she could tell me how she feels the Death Knight experience in Warlords has felt so far. Is there a drastic gameplay difference, or does it still seem relatively close to the MOP version of DK's? Thanks."
Wow, okay, thank you for your question. Pretty much Unholy and Frost, to me, feel very, very similar. There's not much difference in terms of gameplay at all. And I have leveled both specs, and I haven't had any issues with them whatsoever. Blood is the one that has received the most interesting changes. Gameplay, it doesn't actually feel that different. The only problem it has at the moment is rune regeneration is quite poor, but that is going to be looked into. We have seen Celestial on tweet about that. But if they can fix that, and I don't know if I like having to spam Pestilence and not have Heartstrike. It just feels odd at the moment. I don't know if it's something I'll get used to, but it just doesn't feel right. But apart from that, the DK feels good. As soon as they fix rune regeneration, I'm sure it'll be fine. I have some controversial opinions on DKs and whether we should have Icy Touch and Plague Strike, and I think that those should go. I would definitely
really? Okay, you're one of those then.
I'd like to see those abilities go. And just generally keep the whole Death Strike keeps me alive thing, you know? Death Strike has to be the main thing that you're using, and at the moment, it just doesn't feel right to be constantly Pestilence. Gonna Death Strike now. Pestilence.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel right. So yeah. But apart from that, looking good.
It's a little weird.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Well, I have another question here coming in from Seldaric on Twitter. It says he plays Ellenwyn on Dark Sorrow Alliance. Definitely a constant watcher of the show. Thanks for submitting a question. When starting up your garrison, as you lovely people have done in the alpha, have there been a choice of what racial style the buildings can have? If not, is there any hints that this will be inserted into the game?
I think
this might be a question that Bay can answer as well, because I know Bay has done a lot of garrison stuff.
I mean, it looks like it's just Alliance and Horde for now. I'm pretty sure, and you guys can say the same thing. I think it's just Alliance and Horde. But we just got Alliance right now on Monday anyway. We can test that to see if it looks any different. But right now, if you try to make your garrison on Alliance before I took the server down, it crashed and you loaded forever, and then you came back and it was there, but it was all empty. So. But I'm pretty sure at BlizzCon they just confirmed that we'll get Alliance and Horde, and then eventually they might patch in racial buildings, if I'm not mistaken.
But do all the Alliance people have to do... Sorry, Treckie, go ahead.
That's always something they can like add in future content patches, like just different like, you can do this or this rating achievement, whatever gives you a new like garrison or like a barrack look or something that makes it look specific or whatever. Even if it doesn't give you any more benefit than a different look, that's always something they can play around with later on. So.
And we can hope that they will. So just can you explain to me and also to the viewers who may not be as familiar? Is it just that all Alliance have Alliance style, and so you can't do like human style for humans or like elf style or dwarf style type of buildings or gnome style? Is there just one kind of general Alliance style?
Yeah, I guess it technically, chat brings it up right now, Desert Fox. It's Alliance looks like human buildings, like you're playing Warcraft 3. And if you're Horde, you look very orcish if you're playing again. It's like Warcraft 3 sort of structure based. But I think what Treckie says is a good point. They might have that eventually where you can do quests or find things or find plans that you can build a troll hut or a Tauren war drum thing, whatever like that. That might happen. I don't ever know if they're going to make like blanket racial garrisons though. That's a lot of artwork.
Because I feel like part of the reason why people wanted player housing is for the feeling of customization of where you live.
Yeah. I really wanted the customization, but not just for racials, for classes too.
Yeah.
I'd like an Acaris style garrison.
Oh my god! Yeah. Of course you would.
Yes.
Yeah. Did Magdalena put you up to that?
She wants a guest house for the Lich King, basically, just right over there.
Yeah, she does.
But that depends a lot on how like popular garrison's gonna be. Like last I heard is like garrison's gonna be like, oh, it's gonna be very something you really do when you're leveling, and then once you max level is you don't really care about it that much. And I feel like that's gonna be a waste. Like I would rather have it be very interesting for both, or like more interesting at max level because that's where you're gonna spend most of the time.
Well, so if the experience you gain right now on your followers is the same as it's going to be on live, and you need to level up followers to level 100 for them to do your raids for you, which is the garrison end game, that's going to take forever.
But you're also going to get like level 99 followers in the last few zones, so I don't think that's going to be much.
But you need 5 for a group. Do you actually need 20 followers to do a raid? Like, that's not confirmed yet. I'm not sure. But if you need 20 followers at level 100 to do a garrison raid, that's going to be a lot of, like, mini-game action. That might last for months, because right now it's going to take you a long time to level from 90 to 100 with your garrison guys.
Well, at least right now it all seems to happen in the background. Like, while you're busy doing everything else, you could send your people out on missions and forget about them.
Yeah. But you still have to 40 followers for a raid. You still have to manage them, right? And you can only send out so many people at a time, and eventually it just becomes like, oh, I'm still waiting for Bibbidi Bob the gnome to be level 100 so I can actually raid with my garrison followers, because I need another 3 days to do it. So we'll see that.
I'm still waiting for the followers to get captured, and I have to go somewhere and free them.
Yes, we shouldn't talk about that. The raids on your garrison too, the random dynamic events or whatever. I hate that word. Where your garrison literally gets attacked. Now, what happens? Is it just like structure to destroy it to repair them? To take time to they don't know yet. Yeah, will your followers get like wounded and can't go out on missions? Will they get captured? You have to take a quest to go find them. What I wonder is that would be cool if they literally. Because I know in the quest engine in the game, when you get a quest, it puts a little marker on your map, so you know where to go, right? It's totally easy to quest now. But if your garrison people got taken and kidnapped, if there was clues, but the mini-map would not tell you where they are. Old school WoW questing. People would probably freak out, though. They would freak out, like, where is he? What?
Wait, if you have 40 followers and one goes missing, like, just get a new one.
But if you need 40 for a raid, to get a new one.
Wow, this is somebody who clearly cares about his army right here.
Were you a person that played Mass Effect and tried to kill your friends, Treckie?
No, I actually tried keeping everyone alive.
Okay.
For sure.
I see.
Okay.
But you did multiple playthroughs, so.
True, you did.
I was sat here thinking, as you said that, if Mulveric gets captured one more time, then he's done. I'm not getting him.
Then he's just out.
She's got a limited patience.
Just let him stay captured.
Yeah. So, sorry, but you're just no good. You're too high maintenance.
So you've actually had some of your followers captured already in the alpha?
No, not yet.
Not in the game. I was like,
I'm
wait a
just
minute.
waiting for it to happen.
Right.
Now, how do you guys feel? I guess this isn't really in the Q&A. Consider this my question. Since we're talking about garrisons, how do y'all feel that the garrisons have fit into the very beginning of the leveling experience? I know that we've only got a little bit unlocked right now. Do you feel like it's going, because the idea is that it's going to be a smooth part of your leveling process up to 100. Do you feel like it'll be interesting? Do you feel like it'll be annoying? How do you feel like they're working out so far?
Certainly been smooth so far.
Yeah.
It's not been something that I've had to deliberately pay attention to, which that's what I like about it. It's an interesting thing, but don't stop me from doing this other thing I would rather be doing, you know? That's how I feel about it.
I see.
And it definitely fits in the first zone where your garrison is already. So I just kind of wonder, like, when you're off on the other side of Draenor, how is it going to be to get back and then back to questing again? That's my problem. Like, is it going to be like, there should be like some quick travel back and forth, or something. I don't know, like a garrison Hearthstone.
That is definitely the biggest annoyance of questing. I feel like in any game, not just WoW, when I'm deciding whether the questing feels good or feels bad, having to travel back and forth across an entire zone to get from place to place is like the worst thing ever. So I agree with you. There has to be some kind of quick travel back to the garrison, hopefully.
Well, there was Garrison Hearthstones, and it had charges on it. It wasn't working, though, at the time, and I've not seen it in my bag since, I don't think. Have you guys still got it in your bags?
Garrison Hearthstone? I don't think so, no.
Did you even
can set
notice?
your Hearthstone to the garrison, though.
I didn't know.
I had a normal Hearthstone that I could set to anywhere, and then I had like a stack of 99 garrison-only Hearthstones that would take me to the garrison. But when I clicked it, it didn't do anything. It was broken.
Okay, but at least that's the intent. The intent is there.
Yeah.
Yes.
If there's a Hearthstone to go to a garrison, then before you travel to your garrison, you put your Hearthstone wherever you're currently questing. So you go to your garrison, fix your stuff, maybe send your followers on every half an hour or whatever. You send your followers to whatever they're supposed to do, and then you use your normal Hearthstone to get back to the questing part. And there's 1 or 2 quests from the garrison.
I mean, if they don't need to give you a Hearthstone that's exactly for your garrison only, so you can keep your regular one to like go around the world or wherever you're currently questing. But I definitely think there should be a spell or something to go back, because if you get attacked and you're across the freaking world and you're one of those people that, like, it's obviously it's not a timed event as far as I know. You don't have to get back within a certain amount of time. It'll last until you go there. But if you're probably like, oh my god, I don't like my garrison, but you have to fly across the freaking world to get back. So there should almost be like a quest to like attune yourself to your garrison. Or maybe when you make a mage tower.
Attunement.
Oh yeah, that word.
Well, there will be
a
like
building that can help. Yeah.
Weren't they were gonna do like the links where you could put other like outposts again. We're gonna put in other places.
Sure, you're right. I wonder if that might be the thing. If you can put outposts in every sub-zone, if you go to it, that'll have like a portal back to your garrison.
Okay, well, off the topic of garrisons, we can move along to tanking. This is going to be a question mostly for Treckie here, and this is another one from Seldaric. And he asks, would you like to see tanking getting strongly reduced threat generation so that it would be needed to be really active and never let a GCD go to waste during fights? Perhaps finding a good balance between multi-strike and other stats would be needed in order to perform properly. And I have my own opinion on that answer, but I want to hear what you have to say first.
Nope. Kill the threat game. It's not interesting. It's not interesting at all.
That is my opinion as well.
Make it so that, some people have suggested, like, oh, if there's a tank, mobs should automatically hit you. No, but I think where we're at now, it's pretty fine. Like, you hit a boss, you hit the ads or whatever with something, they will be on you, and as long as you keep hitting them, they will stick to you. And I think that's fine. Focus on surviving. That's what a tank does. The threat game was never interesting, in my opinion. And back when it was a big part of tanking, survivability was not a big part, because at that point you did not have your active mitigation. You had your 1 or 2 cooldowns. That's it. And then everything else was the whole fight. You just fought for threat, and that was not interesting gameplay.
Okay. So you find it more interesting when you have to focus on mitigating rather than on dealing damage.
Yeah. Dealing damage is one thing, dealing threat is another, but I think there's I don't mind the DPS rotation for a tank being easy, or however you want to call it, but make it so that you want to generate as much resources as possible so that you can use your active negation properly. That's
Right.
I think that's a key point in designing the tanks at the moment.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely how I feel as well. I feel like people who want threat to be a thing are talking kind of with rose-colored glasses about back when threat actually was a thing. You know, if you can talk about how, oh, it's great to, you know, have tanks have to work really hard to keep threat. But when you think about how that impacted group play and whether or not it was actually fun, I don't really think it was that much fun compared to the gameplay that we have right now.
Wait for 3 Sunders!
Yeah, exactly. Wait for 3 Sunders, or like, I mean, honestly, just the fact is that pugging is a really big part of the game these days. There are situations where you have to deal with other players who are less skilled than you. It's just like what Treckie was talking about earlier when he talked about how he deals with healers who are less strong and how that impacts how he's playing. And if you are dealing with somebody who is a less strong player who is constantly going to make your life extremely annoying and have you push less buttons, I don't know, that's just not as much fun to me.
It is very discouraging for new tanks as well, trying to get into the tank game that don't understand or not too familiar with the threat system to get used to it, and they will basically just join a random group, fail miserably for the first 10 minutes, everyone else will leave, and they will be like, well, let's go back to DPSing.
Right. Yeah, that's a really big part of it, especially when you start talking about optimizing that kind of thing with gear, which was in that question. That's a very high level type of thing that new tanks are just, it's not going to be the very first thing that they pick up is making sure that they have all the right stats. So
yeah.
Okay.
So real quick to confirm this, chat has a couple people that have been talking about, we got tweeted also about the whole flying in 6.0. The no flying is only in Draenor, only in the new continent of Draenor. It's everywhere else in the world you can still fly. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, we're talking really generally about Warlords because that's the focus of all of the alpha testing. But no, in terms of the older zones where you could fly, you can still fly in those zones. The question is just whether you can fly in the new zones that are going to be released with the expansion.
Correct. Yeah. And a quick question comes in here real quick. Oh, I wanted to talk about this real quick about, so Dark Star Uzi tweets at us, and there's a talk about responsiveness changes for Warlords of Draenor. Does the alpha feel more responsive? Now, I don't know if the alpha does, but Celestalon just posted a gigantic blue post about the changes to the responsiveness of the game's back end, and it is going to be awesome if that's actually how it's going to be on live. Like, did you all read that, right? Qelric, Treckie, you read?
I skimmed it.
You skimmed it? Well,
it's going to have a really big impact on there. I think it's one of those things that you'll notice if there are specific things in the game right now that frustrate you. I know that PvPers have talked a lot about interrupting and about the delay on interrupting casts. It's now much more responsive when they're interrupting people. For me, and probably for Treckie as well, holy power generation is like my big frustration in the game right now, and it's why I was so frustrated with ability lag when it was a thing last year, because it delayed holy power generation. Discrete resources like that did get batched by the server, and now those kinds of things are going to generate just in a much more responsive manner. It affects the availability of certain abilities, and it's just so noticeable.
It's mainly noticeable on abilities that proc of actually hitting the boss or something, where the game basically has to take a bit more time to calculate and stuff. I don't know exactly how it works, but Holy Power, for example, your abilities need to actually hit the boss before you get the Holy Power. So if you parry their immune or whatever, you don't get your Holy Power. So the game takes an extra half a second or whatever to make sure that your ability actually hit before you actually get your Holy Power. And that messes up your rotation, and if you're not prepared for it, it's like kind of annoying.
I think the best way I can put this into perspective is the water droplet effect, right? So if you're having like a consistent water drop on, say, a napkin or something, after like 5 or 6 droplets of water, it breaks. And that's sort of how the packaging system works now, that it takes so much information every 400-ish milliseconds, sends that to the server, and then sends it back to you, and sends it back to everyone else, right? That's how it works. In the alpha, the napkin is gone, and it just drip, drip, drip. It just sends, receives, sends, receives. So now you'll go from 400 milliseconds of natural packet back and forth to between 20 and 40 milliseconds of packet. Like, it's a huge difference. And for tanks, for split-second things, for
procs, for abilities that are available based on resources. interrupts. Guardian Spirit was one of the examples that gets just pulled up a lot, that the Guardian Spirit will proc, but the tank will still die, and because it has to do with the way the server is batching the different information, and that should happen a lot less often these days.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's not that every ability was delayed by 400 milliseconds. They would batch up, like some of things would just be delayed by 100 milliseconds or 50 milliseconds.
Sure.
But they would batch until they had enough, and then all of that information would go out. That's not really happening anymore.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely like heals over time, interrupts, and tanking stuff. Classes with faster GCDs as well.
Yeah,
will also benefit a lot from that. But overall game responsiveness, and I suppose, and bosses too. Boss effects. The example that Celestalon used was that the boss is swinging, hits your tank for 70% of his HP. The healer puts up Angel, right? What's it called? Spirit of Redemption.
Guardian Spirit.
Yeah. Guardian Spirit, and that hits the tank. But then the boss swings again, kills your tank, and the Guardian doesn't actually proc and just diminishes and goes away. Like, that should never happen with the new system. Theoretically, of course. We'll have to see.
Have you guys noticed this on Alpha? I assume it was in the last build.
Not really.
I can't say it, no.
It's kind of hard to see because you don't have the add-ons and stuff, so you're already playing handicapped with your trying to look at procs and when you have buffs up and all that kind of stuff. So you're kind of having your eyes all over the place. But yeah, I don't know. It feels fluent enough.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I don't know if all of it is actually in the alpha-wise. And, of course, the alpha servers are so, inconsistent and intermediate right now. They're like, oh, am I logged in? Nope, I'm logged out. And it just kicks you again. So we'll see. When we get better builds, maybe a month from now, we'll see. We'll definitely see. Well,
here's a question that came in from chat that I'd actually like to repeat to you guys. It comes in from EmilGBL. He says, how far into the alpha are you? How finished do you feel the game is? And my opinion is that I don't think there's a whole lot of content in there, but y'all have spent much more time in it.
It's hard to answer. We've seen one zone for 3 weeks, and the second zone for an hour and a half.
That's true. And it's weird because we don't know how far back our alpha test build is compared to where they are internally. Like, the stuff they give us, that MMO Champion data mines, and the patches they give us in the alpha right now could literally be 3 months behind.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have
but we can only judge off of what we see publicly. And what we see publicly has been not a lot of stuff.
No. It's not even 10%.
Yeah, all we've seen is, a lot of the garrison art doesn't even work properly, and you get tons of Lua areas just dragging and dropping your followers, and that's, the huge new game in the game. And if that's not working properly on the alpha right now, then I don't know. We'll have to see. Okay. We will definitely have to see.
Yeah, we can hope that we see more. They may not also intend to test absolutely all of it, but what we see right now is just a small chunk of the game. I think 10% sounds like a pretty decent assumption.
Yeah.
Considering this is the large expansion, I know we keep saying that every time we get an expansion. It's the biggest expansion ever! But the data is there to prove that Warlords of Draenor, because of all the system improvements, the back end, the technology, the art assets, garrisons, the item squish, game squish in general, probably is the largest expansion ever for World of Warcraft so far, without a doubt. So.
Ooh, we didn't go into that previously in the show, and that's actually a question I want to make sure that we get from you guys before we finish. How do you feel like the squish is working out? Have you not even noticed it? Do you think it didn't get squished enough? How has that felt?
I personally would have liked to have seen a bigger squish. I would have loved to have gone back to having maybe 15k health as a tank.
Yeah, we're so far. I don't know.
We obviously have a difference of opinion there.
Yeah, but that's what everyone is complaining about right now, that the HP nerf wasn't big enough, but the damage number seems fine.
Right, exactly.
But I think Blizzard's focus have been to try to get the DPS numbers lowered enough so that it's comprehensible. But your HP numbers is not really that bad. I don't we're gonna look probably around 400 or 500k HP at the end of this expansion, at the end of Warlords of Draenor.
Yeah.
Which means that the next expansion again, they're gonna be very close to what we have right now, if not higher. So I don't think they're that concerned about the health numbers being that high, to be honest.
Well, they're squishing it to a point where their system can cope with it, and that's fine. But because I'm just such a huge fan of TBC, just for nostalgia reasons, I would have loved to have gone back to those numbers of health. But
I just don't know if the game is so far stretched now. I don't think we can push the accordion back far enough.
Nah.
So
And
basically,
they've also said that they intend to have HP numbers a little bigger in reference to damage numbers than before. I mean,
Correct.
that's intended because of the way they want damage patterns to work.
yeah, they want the damage disparity to be different. They actually have to heal people, and then you're not full health or dead. So, but I think damage will be good. Damage is basically pushed back almost 2 full expansions, if not a little farther, honestly. But HP is about 1.5 or so. So I would not. It'd be weird to see 7.0 if we're going to be basically back at Mists of Pandaria HP level, and I wonder what they'll do then. But that's year plus away now, so, or 2 years now away. So we'll get to that bridge when it builds itself.
I think the main thing about HP numbers is always that you generally look at those as percentage. So you have like 70% HP, you have 50% HP. You don't say you have 543k, 1000 HP or whatever. But you look at the damage numbers and you say you're doing like 15k DPS, 13k DPS, and when it goes up to like 150k DPS or 300k DPS, it's not getting ridiculous. And obviously the bosses have a coding error if you have like over 2.1 billion HP. So their goal is really to keep your raid DPS low enough so that bosses never have to go that high in HP.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense then. That's good to hear that you guys feel like it's working out, since I know a lot of times we hear only the negative reactions, not necessarily the positive reactions. And so I think that overall the squish has worked out positively, but because this is the first time people are experiencing it on the alpha, we're getting a lot of the you didn't do enough, you did too much, that kind of reaction. So.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to have an opinion on it, aren't they? But it feels fine. Like dealing damage feels pretty good. So long as I can kill stuff, I'm happy.
Excellent.
So I have a question from Twitter real quick here. This is a quick one right now. Actually, this is probably only geared at Treckie, and I just thought of this would be neat. So Cyclonus asks, has anyone tried the new 4th spec, aka or class, the Gladiator Warrior, and how does it feel to have a tank DPS spec in alpha, even though it's been debugged that they want it to be a literal DPS spec? Treckie, have you actually touched on Gladiator when you could test the 100 talents, or how do you think it's going to be in Warlords?
I don't play DPS classes, so I have not tested it. I get that question all the time, but it is not a spec that is supposed to be tanking. It's basically like going for another DPS spec that uses a shield.
Right.
And I'm not interested in really testing that one out because it does not. You are not tanking with that spec.
Right.
So for me, it's a DPS spec. It's gonna be a DPS spec. You're still gonna need to have a tank in your group if you are running with the Gladiator spec. So it is not a tanking spec. It's just, I mean, technically it does have like 5% damage reduction if you are in defensive stance, but that basically means that that's all you're getting from that talent. Then you can tank, but that's a 5% damage reduction. That's all the talent ever is for a tank. So I don't know. It's not really very interesting.
My first thought was that they're basically making warriors via a talent, but not an actual spec, sort of like how druids were an expansion ago with bears. So I wonder if the gladiator talent becomes a really good thing. Do you honestly wonder if they would rebalance and give warriors a 4th specialization as gladiator? So you'd have arms, fury, prot, and gladiator. And whether this is like a test bed for that play style. Because people have always liked like the warrior trope or the barbarian trope in MMOs or games. There's been people that like, I want to DPS with a shield, and you can't unless I'm a tank, and tanks don't DPS. So they're trying to bring that into the game, I think, and it's really iconic for Warcraft. Like footmen have always had shields, but they're DPS, right? So I wonder if they're doing a test bed with that talent. We'll see.
It could be. It could be very interesting, like for casual players or whatever. If you're raiding, it's like, then if you're in a raiding group, you're gonna look how much DPS does a gladiator stance protection warrior put out, and how much is an arms warrior putting out. Which one is highest? Right. You take the highest one, no matter which one, because you're gonna be DPSing. You're not gonna be tanking. And then you look at if you're looking at a lower tier guild, whatever you're doing, a little bit, you're playing whatever you want, and you have a tank in your group who has gear for tanking. He's got a shield and a one-handed sword, and he's like, well, I can go DPS on this raid just by swapping this talent, and I can do that, and he's a DPS by now instead of having to respec or get a different spec or whatever.
Right.
So I think that's fine at that point, but you will not be able to switch into it or out of it during combat, so
Correct.
It's not like you're gonna be able to like, oh, I'm gonna be okay. Now we're gonna have a burst phase. I'm gonna go into gladiator stance and be doing more DPS.
Yeah, that's dumb.
So that could be an interesting talent at that point, but I feel that's gonna make it too strong, because then that means that, well, if you only have one tank for some phases, then you're gonna have the other tank do that, and then you have the warrior tank go into it. It would be too powerful at that point.
Fragnance.
Because then your off tank would always need to be a warrior, because they would be the ones who could do all of the better spec DPS. That wouldn't be nearly as interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
But that makes sense. I mean, they're all about trying to make it so that you can perform more roles with the same gear that you have. That's the entire point behind some of the gear changes that they've made, where all of the plate gear has all of the stats on it, etc. And so being able to be in a group and have a tank who's like, well, I've got the gear for tanking, but I can go DPS. Just going to change this talent.
Yeah.
I'll be DPS for this run. Like that makes a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah. So I got one little question here, and then we'll be about time to wrap up. This comes in. I'm going to leave the other Qelric question for the last one. So this is from Demonia, I guess? Demonia on Silvermoon EU. Do you think it's right that moving and casting is being removed along with a lot of instant cast spells? Standing still and DPSing is not fun, and moving would be a DPS loss. Thanks. Hashtag QCrew.
Sounds like we know where that guy came from.
Yeah, but I'll hose over to you first, Qelric, just to your thoughts on the instant cast and cast time spells and moving and casting and stuff like that. What do you think? We all play melee, so we don't know, but like, what are your thoughts for like game health and how this is changing?
I don't know. I mean, I come from a time when you could never ever cast and move, so it was completely normal to me that you couldn't do that. And then shamans have that ability where, for a certain amount of time, they can cast while moving. And
Spirit
I
Walker's
think,
grace.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel that's really good for if each kind of caster spec had one of those abilities where during certain boss fights that required a lot of movement, they could still continue to contribute DPS. I feel that's a really good idea. But if it was like a permanent thing, constantly being able to run around and cast, I don't like that design at all.
Yeah, we had an Ellie on the show last week who spoke about how he thought that optimizing his movement was one of the more challenging and rewarding parts of playing a ranged DPS class. And that's the kind of gameplay that's supposed to be coming back. But if people just think about it in terms of, I can't move, I'm having less fun, and they don't think about the bigger picture, then I can see why they would be disappointed.
Well, a lot of times you've got to really consider, right, during this boss fight, where's the best place for me to stand that means I'm not going to have to move at least for a couple of minutes. And that can be rewarding in itself, just because you're having to use some of your brain and you just can't run around like a crazy person spamming fireballs.
Right.
But to have that cooldown ability for those fights where a lot of movement is required, it's unfair for the casters to not have an ability on cooldown like that. But then I start thinking about melee and how many fights in this game are just really unfair to melee.
Yep.
So they need some help too, really.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a disparity there. If melee, when they move and or away from and avoiding bosses and doing mechanics, can't do basically any damage, and for the longest time now, for basically Cataclysm and Mop, casters can do damage no matter what they're doing, sans dots, right? It's only a couple classes can really take advantage of that, and that's a playstyle choice, or a talent choice, spec choice for it in a specific fight. There is like, why bring melee?
Well, I mean, and all of this is very much about like kind of general game design, but the real point here is that the developers have made a call, and they made the call. They made the call to force casters to think about their movement instead of just moving all of the time. And then they're going to get feedback on how that's feeling, and there are going to be people who hate it and people who like it. but that is 100% the direction the developers are moving with the game. So
Yeah. And Treckie, you had something else for that? I think.
Yeah, I was I'm kind of into the same there. I know that the experience with work is great. It's a perfect example, and I kind of wish that would be fun if like all classes get some kind of variation of that ability. Warlocks obviously got the like KGC, which like the beefed up version, which basically means you can cast whenever. But also they were going into that direction earlier in Mr. Pandaria, where they gave like mages like, okay, you can scorch while moving. You'll do like 50 or 60% of your normal DPS, but you can freely walk and DPS. And I kind of like that system, but now they're completely taking many steps backwards from that. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or whatever they're trying to do, but I don't mind if range are able to do like some DPS. I hate it when it's like, okay, you can move or DPS. You can't.
Yeah, you don't want to be pushing no buttons. That's not
correct.
So you want to be doing something. If that means that you're doing 50% of your DPS, I think that's fine.
Yeah, that seems like a much more optimal solution than do nothing. Is just do less good DPS when moving.
Yeah, I mean, and people are going to argue like the whole hunter thing, but hunters, their benefit is that they can move in DPS basically all the time, based on a couple of talents you can take that have casts. But
yeah, I'm still skeptical about how that's going to work out, because we've seen this design before with Ellie. It's like, oh, well, they're balanced around being able to move while DPSing.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see.
I mean, but
then
they also said, I think it was Celestalon that said that if there was a patchwork encounter, hunters would not beat like Shadow Priest, Mage, Warlock, because they have to basically turret to do maximum damage, so they get a better benefit when they can. So hunters will be a little bit below them. But if there's any movement, hunters should be above the. Exactly, they want
we'll
that.
see if the community is really going to accept that.
We'll see. We'll definitely see if that's the case. But if they want to aim for that,
yeah, you're gonna be comparing boss fights on patchwork fights, though, or classes. So.
This is very true. But I wonder if that mentality might hopefully change those, because the way that when I did all of the talents and specs for every class, there were definitely choices that could be made. At least some classes did. That you literally could have different talent options or even spec options for different styles of fighting, which I think that was their original design and goal with Mists of Pandaria, is you didn't just stay one spec, one talent sheet for every encounter. So I wonder if we'll see that finally, maybe.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. A lot of things we have to wait until there's more to test in the alpha, but this has been a pretty good look at what we've got so far.
Pretty good. So now, before I die of coughing here, too much talking, this is sort of a tricky question because I'm really curious about this, but we can all answer this around here. Qelric had one final question that came in. And again, if you guys have questions for our shows or for episodes coming up, on Twitter and Facebook, follow our social media. We announce who's coming on the show at the end of each episode and, of course, on social media. Send us your questions at AskABoss on FinalBoss.tv. It's always there for you guys. You can always tweet us on FinalBossTV on Twitter as well. So we got a good handful of questions for this episode, but I was expecting more. So send more questions. Do for it. But this last question again from Qelric. How will your first 2 weeks of Warlords launch look if everything goes as planned? And Treckie can go first.
The first 2 weeks will be first week will be a lot of leveling alt 2, alt 3, and maybe alt 4. No, maybe not that crazy. But they will be alts leveling and making sure that you have them ready for raiding, which should be introduced the first week. I'm still actually on the second week. The second week. That's when we're gonna get raids. I'm still unsure if we're gonna get heroic and mythic the first week, or if we're gonna have to finish one of them. But that means we could still be able to enter it the second week. I don't know. There's gonna be a lot of raiding as soon as raids enter up at least. So.
Sounds like there's not a lot of sleep in your first 2 weeks of launch.
No, probably not. Probably not.
No.
They will
a lot of energy drinks.
Very sleep deprived. A lot of coke and not much sleep for sure.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Now, how about you, Qelric? How about you, Qelric? How are your first 2 weeks going to look?
My first 2 weeks is going to just be level as quickly as possible. Because fortunately, I would have hopefully already seen it all, so I don't have to do any sightseeing when it goes live. So yeah, just get to max level as fast as possible and just I mean, hopefully by then we'll know exactly what our progression is going to be in terms of gearing. Is it going to be grinding rep with factions that will sell you gear? Because obviously that whole thing's changing with Valor and Justice points, isn't it? So yeah, just trying to get as much gear together as quickly as possible. My guild isn't particularly a competitive guild, and we aren't even into heroics yet. So I'm not going to probably be raiding the moment it comes out. So yeah, just get to max level, start getting geared and ready, and make sure that I'm not the person my guild is waiting for.
Yeah, you never want to be that person. I know that always drives me when I hate leveling. I suck at it. So I always arrange for people to level with me so that we can get it all done in the first like 48 hours or so.
Well, I usually hate questing, but I've been really enjoying the quests in these new zones. But the chances are I'll probably lapse back into the whole just spam dungeons all day long with my friends.
It's going to depend on what's most efficient, because I know when MoP launched, it was the very first zone in MoP was so buggy that it was most efficient to skip it and just to dungeon level 2 levels.
It's always crowded as well the first hours, so it's just easier to do dungeons for the first 2 levels and then jump into a zone where there's no people at all, and just keep ahead of the curve, and you're fine.
That's the one thing that looks like it's to be changing, though, because the initial launch Dark Portal event gets you halfway to 91. That's planned. And then you basically dig 91 in your garrison. And your garrison is always, obviously, instanced to yourself. So your quests you do with it and around it are all you only. And they basically give you 92 in that starting experience of, like, taking over that first little spire, or I guess we'll figure out what the first one for Alliance is. It feels like if the same curve is, that 92 is basically a freebie, and then you go from there. Because you
That's great, because those first couple quest givers are just awful at the launch of any expansion.
Yeah, but it's all instance as far as I know. Like, I think it's all going to be personal, and the quest for the Dark Portal thing will all just be like a, when you log in, pa-ding, pops down kind of deal, I would imagine.
As long as there's not like 500 people trying to access the same quest giver at the same time.
All on mounts!
That's actually a pretty interesting way for them to sort of alleviate that beginning of expansion rush. That's only a problem for a couple of days every expansion cycle, but it does make for a very unpleasant experience. So that's neat that they're doing it like that.
If it stays, that's how it looks like on the alpha right now. Like, you basically log in, you start your garrison, and then you're 92. You're like, oh, what did I just do? I think it'll obviously taper up from there, the time you need to level, because it's not going to be like super fast like that every level. Like, it'll take around the same amount of playtime. What was it, like 14 or so, 16 hours for Mists? No, 22.
It's definitely going to slow down.
It was like 22 hours to get to 90, right? I thought it was about that. We'll see.
How many hours?
Like 22, I think, at first, like the first push. Do you remember?
Yeah, 22 sounds about right.
About 22 hours.
Don't even remember.
So I know I slept twice, and it took me about 48 hours, but I didn't do it hardcore.
I thought it was like 4 hours a level-ish, and there are 5 levels. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see.
And since chat was talking about the raid gating, I just want to be clear about that, since they have announced how it's going to work. Pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, pretty sure from what I remember of the dev announcements is that no raids the very first week. Normal and heroic are going to be open the second week, and then mythic the third week is because that's the way that it worked in MoP. They said they were happy with the way that it worked in MoP, and what they had done was that they had opened things the second week of raiding, and then the heroic stuff.
The difference is that it missed upon we had to do it on normal mode to access heroic. We won't need to kill it on heroic to access mythic. So if they open up mythic the third week, that's fine in my opinion. But giving us normal, heroic, and mythic at the same week, that's a very bad idea, I think. So I hope
they're
actually going to stick with that. So mythic is the third week. You're going to have your time to progress normal and heroic or whatever the week 2. And then after that, we're going to have like 3-4 weeks of that instance, and then we're going to have the next instance, which will probably be the same normal heroic the first week, and then mythic the second week.
Yeah, I think it was, 7 weeks after launch is the final raid. But that's the normal heroic, and then we get the mythic the week later, so I think it's between 7 or 8 weeks later all the raid content will be out.
What Treckie was saying is right. I was jumping to a bit of a conclusion there where I assumed that because they used to gate based on normal, I assumed that logically they would open normal and heroic and then mythic the following week, just because that would make a lot more sense, and that's a more healthy playstyle, I think, and they did like the way that worked. But it is possible that they just unlock all of the difficulties in that week too, and then subsequently for all of the raids after that. I'm just kind of assuming that they're not going to do that because that sounds horrible to me.
Yeah,
I think we want a week.
Yeah, before you were locked due to the fact that you were instance locked after killing the last boss, and but you need to kill him.
And LFR, normal, heroic, and mythic have no shared lockout in Warlords of Draenor. But normal in our trope now is technically flex. So raiders like like Anna, myself, and Treckie won't do normal mode. I don't think we'll probably just do heroic if we have time. I think you guys might do normal and heroic.
I'm pretty sure we're going to be doing normal and heroic.
But then once mythic unlocks, you'll just do heroic and mythic. I don't think you'll go back and do normal.
Depends on what the tier and the trinket.
I don't know.
We'll see. I don't know. We're planning on doing it.
Cubinik
brings up in chat that he says that the devs have said that heroic and mythic will be open at the same time, but Celestialon or maybe Ian said you will not really be able to kill things there with blue gear. I'm not sure where that was said. It'll be interesting if that's true.
If they launch
that
mythic,
does ring bells, actually.
If they launch mythic at the same time, then good luck, Treckie, in your blue gear, your mythic rating, because you'll
and by
do
good
it.
luck, I mean they're going to sit there and pound. I mean, Method will sit there and pound their heads against the wall until things die.
Well, it means a lot of alt raids through normal and heroic to make sure that our mains get as much gear as possible, and then start progressing in mythic. I just don't like that playstyle because that means that we're gonna go into mythic like day 2 or something after it started, which kind of means that some people can be frisky and start a boss or two. But we don't have the same issue as we have right now that people kill a boss on heroic, go normal, and then heroic again. Because it's gonna be like if you kill one boss on mythic, you kill that one and you need to go the next one.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure mythic is delayed the week after normal heroic launches.
I really hope so. I guess
pretty sure they're not going to drop 3 difficulties on 1 week. That sounds a little weird.
I mean, like, I'm really hoping they're not going to, but, you know, I guess none of us know for sure at this point, so I guess it's pretty good to bring up.
We will definitely see. Well, I think it's button time.
Yeah, World Cup game's going to start soon. Come on, go USA!
Oh my goodness. Button time. Here we go. Thank you all for joining us for this Alpha First Impressions episode. It was a whole lot of fun. Chat room was awesome. And again, if you have questions for episodes in the future or whatnot, please tweet at us during the show, or of course send us a question on Ask a Boss on FinalBoss.tv. But again, let's go around the table real quick. And our guests again today was the very awesome Qelric, the Death Knight. You can go look at all of her awesome videos on her YouTube page at youtube.com/Qelric. There's no U in that name.
No U.
No U.
Put a U in my name.
Thank you very much for being on the show, Qelric. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been great.
Very, very awesome. Maybe we'll see you back on in the future for more Alpha stuff. Who knows? We'll be doing more of these. Treckie, I think you guys might know who this guy is. I'm not sure. You can go, of course, watch Treckie on twitch.tv/Treckie. Are you streaming tonight, Treckie? Are you doing more stuff tonight?
I might. I don't know. There might be Throne of Thunder because I want to make sure that everything is done before Alpha hits tomorrow. So there might be something, but I'm not promising anything.
It's always fun having you on the show, sir. Thank you very much.
It's always fun being here.
Yep.
And one of the co-hosts of FinalBossTV is Annafel. You can go follow her on the Twitter at Annafel.
At Annafel. And definitely had a great time with 2 of my favorite content creators. Really nice to have both of you on the show, and I've really enjoyed seeing the variety of content that y'all release on different channels. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
And of course, there is me outside of the show. You can find me right here on FinalBoss.tv streaming Alpha and soon to be all Warlords of Draenor content and raids. But then my socials are all on twitch.tv BayTLM, which is my side channel, my personal one. And of course, if you have any questions about who's on FinalBossTV and who helps work all this projects, go to our website, FinalBoss.tv. All of our information is there. Our Ask a Boss, our Be a Guest submissions. All of our episodes are there as well as the podcast-only version, which is just the audio if you want to listen to them later or listen to past episodes. You can go there and find all of our YouTube stuff and all of our armories and whatnots. Next week, we have a interview sit-down with the creator of Sentry Totem, Tickle Totem, as well as one of her co-experts in Archim Tyros, one of the content creators and staff members over there on Sentry Totem. We're going to talk about how they made the website, what it does, get nitty-gritty for it, and then talk about their plans, of course, going into Warlords of Draenor. So don't miss that one, because at the end of that episode, we have a super special announcement. So stay tuned for that. But again, thank you all very much for watching. Trust in the coin this week if you are raiding. Have fun at work. And from everyone behind the scenes, we thank you very, very much. We'll see you all next week. And for a real after show, there's no after show today, so we're leaving after this. We'll see you all later, guys. Have fun watching the game if you're going to watch it. And bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you, everybody.